Hello and welcome to I'm Not a Player, I'm a Gamer podcast. Thank you again for returning. We're a few episodes in now, and we've had some amazing feedback again from people saying how much they're enjoying it. And hopefully, we're just getting started on all the fun content that you're going to get to see. Um, on today's episode, I am joined by my good friend Neil Duffy, who we will go into full introductions of how we know each other. But for people who don't know who you are, Neil, and obviously we'll get into how we met. Who is Neil Duffy? What's your association with esports and gaming?
Well, Miles, great to be here. Thanks for having me. As you mentioned, my name is Neil Duffy. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer of a company called efuse. It's a software infrastructure company that services the gaming industry. So, working with publisher partners, brands, streamers, all kinds of different folks. So, I've been in the industry for a long time. This is my 10th year, believe it or not, and I've had a couple various other jobs and opportunities along the way that we'll get into throughout the podcast. But thrilled to be here. So thank you very much.
No, there's no worries. Also, obviously, 10 years of it already. I'm trying to. What's been good is actually is we haven't had too many of the young folks on yet. So like when we talk about our gaming, the consoles that get involved are sort of the older stuff that I appreciate. Sometimes I'm going to be waiting for the newer guys to come on where they mention their first console. It says, "Oh, I started with the PS5," and it's like, "Oh, you don't know how it all began." But with yourself, where did it begin? From like your early memories, what was like your first sort of console that you started off with?
Well, I remember way back in the day, we had a Commodore 64 in our home, which was a computer, but that wasn't how I started. I started I just turned 40, so I was born in 1983. So I remember being, 4 or 5, and we had the regular Nintendo around the house, the NES, which I think hit American markets it was in Japan in 83, and I think it came to America in 86. So those earliest days of playing Excite Bike and Duck Hunt, and really the game that got me into it was Super Mario Brothers through the NES. From there, I was hooked, and then every system that came out after that, obviously Super NES and beyond, was how I really got involved in loving video games, playing video games, and I never could have dreamed that it would have turned into a full-time job, let alone a career.
Yeah, so like obviously, I mean, I think a lot of people are going to mention Duck Hunt's already come up a couple of times already, and I think Mario there's going to be a common trend with that as well. Like, so as you were sort of growing up from becoming a teen, was there any sort of like games did you stick to like a certain type? So Santi had mentioned that his sort of Zelda was something that followed him all the way through his childhood to becoming like, well, I mean, even now as an adult playing it on the Switch. But was there any like sort of particular games or genres that sort of you played at like a young age, I guess?
Well, one of the games that we have continued to play and even pick up and play now is Mario Kart. I think that we played that especially in grade school and into high school religiously. That's how you determine who gets first access to this or first access to that is
Yeah.
you play a game of Mario Kart and the winner gets to choose. So we would do that. We would play that game all the time, and I remember even a few years ago at one of our office Christmas parties we had a Mario Kart tournament, and the unlikeliest of champions kind of turns up because everyone played that game, and
Oh yeah, the dark horses
it's the
that people will
best.
just come out with it, and you're like, oh, you'll be amazed how many
Yeah.
people have played. I remember we had it where we were lucky enough we rented a cinema screen, and normally people rent a cinema screen, and it's oh they'll put on like an old classic movie or something. Well, one of our guys turned up and went, right, I'm gonna bring my 64 in. Can we hook up a Nintendo 64 to a cinema screen? And we were playing Mario Kart on a big cinema screen, and that was the tournaments and the reaction with that. Did you have a go-to character? Do you always stick to the same character?
Um, I no, I bounced around. I like Princess. She was awesome. She was the
I was just about to
quickest
say I
and
was always
agile.
Princess Peach. Peach was always my go-to, and I remember I would fallings out with people based on the fact that they would select Peach. And no, 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 I'm going Peach.
That's my
That's my
character.
character. But so was that on the 64 that you started off with Mario Kart?
Super, Super Nintendo,
Yeah, yeah.
way back in the day. But then, yeah, obviously 64 carried through, and I don't play Mario Kart now very much. I did get one of those classic retro machines. I think it was a Super NES Mini. Then we played with that and had a ton of fun. I took it to the office so that people could play it, but there was 60 or 80 games on there.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
bringing back a lot of good memories of childhood. And I don't know. I don't actually know where it ended up. We moved offices, and I guess it became a casualty.
Yeah. And what was there any other games that you sort of like? Obviously, you mentioned Mario Kart, but when you're playing with your friends, was there any other games that you remember? Sort of like we discussed sort of like I would always meet up with. It was before we had people understand that there was a time before mobile phones and there was a time before the internet where you actually had to go and like knock at someone's house, or if you wanted to go and play video games, you had to actually go to their house and do it. It'd blow people's minds. Obviously, it's how LAN basically started LAN tournaments where it was going around to someone's house and playing. Was there any games that you used to play like as with your friends or anything over the Mario Kart that you remember fondly?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm Canadian. I grew up in Canada and I still live in Canada. I live in Toronto. So you can probably tell where I'm going to go with this.
Yes.
We would play NHL 94
Oh,
religiously.
yeah,
That was a game and you were unstoppable. You do the old around the net, one time pass in the slot, and that couldn't be beat. NHL 94, I think, should still go down as one of the greatest games of all time. Or Blades of Steel, which is another
yeah,
throwback, another hockey game. But we would play that. We would play Super Mario Brothers 3. That was an amazing game. And just we would play that for hours and hours. And especially during summer break from school, you just show up and you sit there and you pass the controller back and forth. You do, first player, second player, and just play for hours and hours. Those were, that's bringing me back a ways. But those are my favorite games growing up. Those are some of my fondest memories because it was an escape. It was your own reality that you would create, and your progression and your success and your confidence and your wins and your losses. Yeah, Super Mario Brothers 3 was amazing. When you can finally beat that game too,
yeah.
I'll never forget the first time I beat it. And yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I love playing the Madden and the NHLs, and obviously with the soccer as well, with the FIFAs of the world, where I would spend hours on end just playing campaign mode, season mode, let alone playing with your friends, where like signing your favorite players and making a dream team that like people would actually like dream of doing in real life. Like I remember I started off, I mean, Calgary is my team, fully enough, with ice hockey. And when Jerome McGinley was in his when he was in his peak and playing the NHL games with him and terrorizing people with that,
Oh yeah.
I gave it a good go myself, ice hockey. I done all right here, but nothing compared to how I played on the game compared to my actual skating. I was did you ever play any of the Madden games, any of the sport games other than NHL?
Oh yeah, all the time. We would love Madden. We used to play that actually in the dorm rooms. We used to when I was in college. We used to go around and collect $20 and have a Madden tournament amongst our floor. And the same guy would win every time. He was just unbelievable. But we would also play the Tiger Woods golf
Yep.
back in the day, and FIFA. I remember FIFA '02 especially. I probably logged 400 or 500 hours into that game. And it was, it was a World Cup year, I think. And
Yep.
we would just play that all the time. And one guy had a house, and he had the main console. He had the flat screen TV and all the latest technology. We would go and play at his house for hours and hours. And yeah, that was a ton of fun playing. I can't remember which team. I think I was Real Madrid most of the time. They were pretty dominant back then.
Oh
So
yeah.
those are my big ones: FIFA, NHL, Madden a little bit, but not as much as the other two for sure.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned with Mario Kart how like that would settle, like who would do certain things if you we had the same with FIFA where we'd have FIFA tournaments. Whoever won the FIFA tournament would be in charge of what food you were getting or what we were gonna go watch at the cinema. Like you had to win a game of FIFA to basically settle who was gonna do what. It's amazing how many times like video games can actually settle like real life situations just from a competitive game. Uh,
Yeah, absolutely. The funny thing is, when you say you had to go around and knock on people's doors, that is truly what we did. And
yeah.
you would have that central console, and whoever had the best TV or best sound system, or frankly, whoever's mom made the best snacks,
Oh yeah.
would be kind of where you end up. And yeah, it's hard to take away those memories. And I think, especially this generation, has been robbed of that because now everyone's got a great setup at home and a great computer and PS5 and Xbox. And the struggle was real back in the day, and I think it's a little bit easier for some of the folks today.
Oh, I remember even as we started to like technology start to evolve a bit, like the pain of getting a game and actually having to wait for it to install on your console and run an update. Like you couldn't just get a game when it started, you could just put a cartridge in and you just play straight away. And then
Right.
suddenly there was this boom of like, hold on, you can just play online against people from the other side of the world. Like I mention all the time, like Call of Duty lobbies and gaming lobbies but even mentioning FIFA and Madden, like I would just load up FIFA and just be like, oh, I can play a game against someone across the other side of the world. And it completely blew my mind. Like, do you remember what it was like when the internet came along, but when online gaming came along, like the bit like how different it was. Like, how did you find like the transition going from what was, like you said, playing with your friends or like solo to suddenly being able to play the whole world?
Well, to be honest, I found it very humbling because I might have been the best of my block or the best in my friend group, but the moment you go online, you get your ass handed to you,
Yeah.
and that was not nearly as much fun. So growing up, I didn't play nearly online as much as other people because I like to be very good.
Yep.
I'm very competitive, and going online, you soon realize that there's some 7 year olds out there with world class talent that are going to beat you 100 times out of 100. And that concept, knowing as much as you do about global connectivity and the opportunity to meet, compete, and play with each other. That's really how I got into the gaming industry. And there was a company you might remember it called Virgin Gaming,
Yep.
which started in I think 2010 or 11 by a couple of great guys, Billy Levy and Zach Selden founded this company with the idea of, let's create a place where people can play each other for money. And whether it's $5, $10, $50, primarily in the sports games, FIFA, Madden, NHL, NBA, amongst some other ones. But as soon as I heard about this, one of my friends was one of the investors in the business. He started telling me about what they were doing and creating some of the tournaments they would host, specifically the Challenge Series, which was in partnership with EA
Hmm.
around FIFA, Madden, and NHL. And they gave away $1 million was the prize pool. And you would compete in weeks and months of lead up tournaments. As soon as I heard about that business, I got a chance to meet the guys. I said, I want to be a part of this. This is not only going to change gaming, but this is going to essentially be the new wave of media and entertainment of people playing video games for money. So that's how I got into the gaming space in 2014, kind of at the height of that Virgin Gaming model. Eventually, we changed our name to World Gaming because the license had expired with Sir Richard Branson's company. But that's how I got into the world. We ran that business for uh, I guess 6 years until we sold it in 2020. But I believe in that model completely, and I think the moment that you see how good some of the guys are that play FIFA or play Madden at a competitive level, you all of a sudden realize that the best in the world and the average person, it's the same as athletics. You can see Derrick Henry being running back for the Tennessee Titans, and it's very different than me trying to run the ball. So I think the entry point for me was my eyes were wide open to what the world could be around competitive and connected video gaming.
Well, I think you're spot on with the humbling moment. Like you said, I used to think that I was brilliant at playing a game, and amongst your friends, you might be like the best amongst your friends. And then I remember, I think it was game battles. It was called when we started off, and we were doing game battles matches, and you go up in games and said, "Oh, well, hold on, there's rules about what guns you're allowed to use, or there's certain rules about what teams you're allowed to be," and you'll play with your friends against each other. And there's nothing more humbling than having like an amazing run with your friends and you feel great and you go online and like you said, just getting absolutely destroyed online. And I remember when I was growing up, like I've always followed Optic from a young age, and I said like it made me truly appreciate what it was to be like a pro gamer. Like, but like you said, the way that I think we've actually mentioned this essentially, but like the crossover with athletics is you don't realize how much effort and time you have to put in. Like you can be someone that's average, and at high school you can be fairly good, and it's the same with athletics. Like there's tons of kids that out of high school to go, they've got ability. Let's see what they can do. But to actually like get to that next level to turn it into a profession is there's so much to it, and I think that's what I always appreciate when I see like gamers these days, and especially the pro players. It's like you can't just you are not just born with hand-eye coordination and the ability to do it. It takes like hours of training and commitment outside of just the norm to get to that level. And I think that's where the crossover comes with athletics.
And I think a lot of people don't appreciate exactly that. They still look at gaming, or at least they have historically, not nearly as an accomplishment as what some of these specimens. When you look at some of these athletes, they truly are specimens, and that debate is for another day of athletics versus gaming. competition is competition. And if you're the best in the world at something, and you're the best in the world at what you choose to be the best in the world at, you've got my absolute surprise and bewilderment. And it's incredible what some of these people do.
Yeah. Um, it's I guess it's I was going to try and compare it to golf and transition into golf quite quickly and say how you can be the best in the world at golf, but it can change quickly and it's staying relevant and it's staying. And I guess again, you've got to be constantly I don't know. It's almost that form is temporary, class is permanent sort of thing, and I think that's sort of similar with gaming. That the form sometimes is it's so hit and miss sometimes. Like you could, but there are some people who've been consistent all the way through, and we see it when we do like the lifetime achievement at the esports awards, and I see they talk about people who have been relevant for decades, as it were,
Yeah.
which is again like it is that similar crossover to athletics that you can be the best at something, but of the Messi and Ronaldos of the world in football, like in the gaming equivalent, it's to stay relevant for decades is a huge achievement, and it's not something that can easily be done.
No, I agree. And when you look at, whether it's Call of Duty players or whether it's, Smash Brothers is one of my favorite titles, and you look at the gods they call them, but the Hungry Boxes and the
Yeah,
Mango and the Leffins and MK Leos, and these have been your same top dogs. They don't win every tournament, but they're always consistently top eight, and they have been for the last, almost 10 years, some of them more than 10 years. But they practice. I think that's one thing people don't appreciate: the grueling travel schedule, the grueling competitive schedule, and then the amount of time that they've got to practice. And now many of them actually get most of their money through streaming.
yeah.
That's a full-time job. That's a lot of work. And but yeah, to be on top for that long is quite a feat.
But you seem to be doing all right with it the past 10 years as well. You seem to be coming from strength to strength. How have you seen it like change in the sort of the past 10 years? How has like not just the day to day, but like just the overall like gaming and esports community? How have you seen it change over like the past 5 to 10 years?
Well, I didn't have any whites in my beard when I joined this industry 10 years ago. But it's been a dynamic shift. It's been really impressive. There was a lot of us who were early adopters and believers, and I kind of consider myself part of the second wave joining in 2014. The MLGs of the world that started in 2001, I think it was, those guys, and the ESL folks, and a lot of those people have pioneered this industry, even for folks like me to be able to get jobs. We're all indebted to, and we owe them, more than words will ever say. But from 2014 to now, it's just been an entirely different world. I'll give you an example. When I joined the industry, I was really looking to build out the collegiate esports network, and I remember June of 2014, the first ever collegiate esports scholarship was announced by Kurt Melcher at Robert Morris University. And that was a jaw-dropping moment. Everyone was just, amazed and stunned. Like, how are they going to give scholarships to esports players? And, you fast forward a year from there, I think it was, 4 or 5 schools had scholarships. Fast forward another year from there, and it was another 5 or 10. And now you fast forward 7 or 8 years, and yeah, I think there's now over 400 schools, might even be over 500 at this point, that have either full scholarships, partial scholarships, or some kind of financial support that allows high performance athletes, gamers, to compete in their game of choice and be able to go to school while seeing the reward of their accomplishments and their achievements. And that's really impressive. It's creating a generation that can follow their dreams, that can do what they love, and that can get an education as a result of it. And in some of these cases, they might not have been able to go to college, university without the financial aid or the scholarships. So that makes me really happy. The other part of it is the pro teams that were around in 2014, the complexities of the world, and the TSMs, Cloud9, optics. You've seen that rising wave of momentum, and with that investment, a lot of those folks, Team Liquid also is just they're the best. They're the gold
Yeah.
standard in the industry, in my opinion. But you've seen a whole generation of people make a lot of money, build up these teams and orgs, and a lot of them exit the industry, and a lot of them get new professionals to come in and run these businesses, some to great success and some to great challenges. And I think we're starting to see in 2021, 22, 23, a lot of the challenges that come out of creating a gaming team on a path to profitability. How do they become profitable? How do you make money? You've got this ravish, a rabid, I should say, fan base. You think of FaZe Clan, for example,
Yeah.
who were valued at all kinds of money, north of $1 billion, and then I think recently did a transaction, at less than 25 million. But they've got a fan base, and they've got a reputation, they've got a name, and they've got a legacy, but they haven't been able to turn a profit despite doing some really significant revenues. So the industry's changed around us. I kind of look at it as we're going through a great period of, I don't want to call it consolidation, but you're right sizing a lot of the businesses and consolidating a lot of the businesses with good assets and also good people. You're starting to see some people leave the industry, and hopefully the good ones decide to come back because we need them. But it's just been fascinating to watch an industry boom and bust, and now we're on the second boom of what it's going to look like over the last 10 years.
Yeah, I think through conversations I've had, because my knowledge of like the collegiate level of esports before I started this whole podcast was very limited. Obviously, I'd been a part of the awards with the scholars and having a lot of conversation with people there, and brilliant networking. And actually, like, I've got a lot of people who have given me a lot of time to sort of help me educate and further my knowledge with it. And my mentality was always at the start of, oh, it's just people going to collegiate level to try and become pro gamers, when fundamentally that is just a small part of what they're actually looking to do. Like, there's so many different levels to what is part of esports in terms of from a just, if you just take away the gaming side of it, like the business side of it, the media side of it, the social media side of it, like there's so many like different forms of skills and education that can come from it. That's the thing that I've really sort of opened my mind to, and appreciating that there's, like you said, there's so much money that's been thrown around with these brands of how they're trying to come up with different forms of content to make themselves a profitable business. But the amount of people that you see who leave the industry with all these different forms of knowledge and skills that can't be picked up from other forms of workplace. Like it's a completely it's a world separate from any other, where you see people go away and they'll start their own thing, and some people start their own organizations, but the skills that can be picked up from it are incredible. And that's what I've always tried to push, and I hope to continue to push, is that I always say to people, if it's something that you're into that can just start as you have a passion for gaming, and you can start a conversation with someone about gaming, it can branch off into wherever you want. And especially like over in the UK, I feel like it is definitely growing. I can see the growth. It's a way of catching up stateside, and I know the stateside are almost like the pressure's on them basically. They're the ones inspiring your Mexicos, the UK, the European stage. Everyone's looking at them to go, okay, well, how can we be like that? Because everyone can identify that there is money available through content and the way that the world is growing. It's just how they can educate people correctly to get to that level, to get to that point. And that's why I feel like it's grown so much, because the way technology is moving and the investments that's been put in through the collegiate level, that, like you said, I agree where you're saying that we are consolidating now and we're ready for the next wave now. And it's exciting to see what that next wave is going to be.
Well, I love that point. And I think the most important thing to take away around the value of collegiate esports is the community that it builds on campus, and the sense of belonging and inclusivity that creates for people that have a shared love of games. And if nothing else, I think that's the best message to leave behind, because a lot of these campuses might only have a few competitive gaming teams, but they've got really big gaming clubs, and they've got places where people can play any kind of game that they love. Sometimes it's board games, or other tabletop games, or computer games, or console games, or mobile games. And going to college or university, you should go and you should find a lot of like-minded, lifelong friends. And I feel like the gaming clubs have been instrumental over the last 10 or more years in doing that. So the money aside and the professional gamers aside, creating that institution of inclusivity and community is something that I think collegiate does a really nice job of.
Well, it is actually very impressive that you mentioned that. Funny enough, Donna Walters, who was on our golf team, part of our foursome when we golfed, who I've had on. actually leaned on that exact same point that when a lot of people that go to college, university, they'll be the sports guys and they'll be the media and music and theatre side. But then there's that group of people where they're introverts. They've gone to university to learn their ways and they love gaming and they've probably spent a lot of their time in their own space. And what you actually, funnily enough, mentioned with NHL earlier on is that it's your escapism. It's where you go to get away from the world. So you're now joining a world where this is your next step. This is where, quote unquote, you find yourself, like you said, you meet new people. And to have something straight away that you have in common, where you can go to a one of these incredible setups that they have now, where someone will just be sat there on their own playing, and you can just spark a conversation of, oh, what is it you're playing? Oh, you can spark a conversation on mutual interest of a video game instantly. Like the amount of people I've hit it off with just because I'll mention one game and they're like, oh, this is why I'm up to that game. And straight away you're
Yeah.
like, you realize that you have the same interest in something that you both use as a form of escape, which is something that not many people you can't outside of I'd say sports, there aren't many other things that connect in that way, where you have a mutual passion for something that you use in your own spare time as a social thing a lot of the time until you turn it into work. That's what you choose to spend your downtime doing. And to be able to have that to grow and build from that from a university level, that's what again I think is incredible that you can find people who are just like you that you'd have no idea exist, and you have that you can build on. I think that's incredible, and that again something that's been brought with the collegiate level is how the benefits socially, let alone what could develop from it, are incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you on that point.
Yeah.
Maybe
So,
music, or if you talk to a crypto bro,
oh, listen,
the crypto guys, they'll be best friends if they both know
oh,
they're in crypto.
if I could have met some of them crypto guys when I was younger, that would have been a huge benefit for myself. I stayed away from it, and boy, do I regret that. Music though, I agree. I think the music clubs again, but there's a big mix I think with music and video games as well. Like a lot of people, soundtracks wise, in video games are only getting better and better. Like you're seeing albums being released for video games now, just
Yeah.
purely based on the soundtrack. Um, so moving past that a little bit. So obviously I mentioned the esports awards a little bit. So obviously the first time we met was a couple of years ago out in Vegas. We had the you. I was going to say you had the joy. I don't know if I class it as a joy of playing golf with myself. I try my hardest, but I have an iffy game. But what were your like overwhelming sort of like thoughts of like the awards in general? Like, did I assume you loved the experience like everyone else that I've spoke to?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I was really appreciative to be able to first off play golf with you and be able to more so this year than last year. Last year was miserable weather, but
Oh,
we
don't
had a
I
ton of
froze the year before. Bears
we had a ton
best.
of fun. You had to buy new gear if I remember correctly.
Yep.
And we stopped at the turn for a while to get some hot chocolate and hot coffee. That was a ton of fun. But the award show I think is really special. I've gone twice now. I didn't make it when it was in Arlington, Texas, but I heard really good things and I watched it. But the last 2 years I've been able to go. I love the awards. I think this year, just the way that it was consolidated, um, hosting it at Resorts World is just such a really cool spot. When they broke the world record outside with uh, what was the company that did it?
Pac-Man on the
Yeah,
side. Yeah.
Pac-Man on the side of the building with
Yeah.
Booga and Xfinity and all that
Yeah.
cool stuff. I thought it was fun. And the one thing I love about the awards, we're not nominated. I didn't win any awards, and the company didn't win any awards, but the quality of talent of people that these sports awards get into the room, and you get to have conversations, real conversations, not sitting there pitching people on business calls, but being able to sit down and have dinner and just chat about what's going on in your business. How can we help? Is there opportunities here or there? Being able to hang out with some of the streamers and talent and just people that we look back and admire. And then also just to learn about new trends in different markets. Like, so much is happening in LATAM that I wasn't aware of, and some of the stuff happening in Europe that, we just don't hear that much about. So just having conversations, it's one of my favorite events of the year, and I always look forward to attending. And the hospitality that the Sports Awards and the entire team put on was incredible. For me, my highlight might have actually been immediately after the awards. getting to watch that Pac-12 football game that Michael Penix went out and Washington beat Oregon. And I went to the game with one of the awards guys, Sean Keeley.
Yep.
Would love to have had you there. I know that you get tied up with
Yeah.
some other stuff, but yeah, next year we'll have to go and do it all over
I
again
was gonna
next year.
say we're waiting for it to all get announced, but I know I need to. I'd love for it to be out in Vegas again. If it is, I know there's a lot still going on there, and I need to get myself to that stadium because I only got to visit it briefly, and I need to see the Sphere. That's if they're out in Vegas again. Let's see where it ends up being. But I need to get myself out there for more games. And you mentioned it was one of your favorite events of the year. Are there any other events you've got coming up, or anything through work that you're particularly looking forward to coming up in the next year or so?
I've got an event called Get on My Level. My friend Joe Krabari and I, we co-own a Super Smash Brothers tournament. It's a super major, takes place in Toronto, at the Sheridan Center, and it gets like 2,500 people a year to come through.
Nice.
All the major players on the Melee side and the Ultimate side. So that takes place May 17th to the 19th. I'm really excited for that. We've got some special announcements coming out over the next probably a couple of months. Um, but it's cool because it's like a grassroots organization. Joe is the only full-time employee. I'm there to help him and provide guidance, support, and open up my contacts. But he puts on this event and it's amazing. He gets a full hotel. Um, like I said, a couple thousand people there. You'll break 1 million views on Twitch. You know, the grand finals on the Melee side especially will have 60, 70,000 concurrent viewers. And Hungry Box has won it before. Mango is
Ah,
always up there, Leffen, and we just hope that it's a really great contest. And I'm excited to see everybody, the Smash community, invades Toronto, and we have a really great weekend, and then cap it off with a really cool harborside boat cruise as our closing party. So I'm excited for that.
when's the date of that? Because I might have to try and find my way over to Toronto, to
Oh,
be
please
honest.
do. Yeah, you'll have full VIP access. Compliments of me. It's May 17th to the 19th.
Okay. For sure, I've got to have a look at that. I mentioned the Hungry Box. This is what I always say to people when I talk about the different people I met. I remember it was not last year, it was the year before. I met Hungry Box for the first time when we were out in Vegas. I remember it was the World Cup. So he was there obviously supporting his nation, and oh, he was a great guy. Like the conversations you can have with him, and he always brings so much like juice and energy to the awards. And he's just one of the many guys that whenever I talk about this network of people that I've managed to like be introduced to, like every single person that you speak to, you always expect them to have a bit of an ego. And yeah, you've got to have a bit of an ego on the competitive circuit, but when they have a conversation with you, they're just like, it sounds cliche, but they're just a normal person. And it's the same like we're saying at the collegiate level, like the people you're talking to, you're all having a conversation because you're into the exact same things. And that's what I find with the awards all the time is you're having conversations with people who were there for the same reason. Like they have a passion for games, and whether or not they've turned it into a business or a social aspect with the content creators, everyone's there for the same thing. And yeah, it's such a fun time. And the more events I can get to, the more I find that the community is just it's incredible, and I can't wait to see what happens over the next few years with it.
Yeah, and Juan, to your point, is one of the nicest guys, but
Oh, what? Yeah,
he plays that villain part pretty nicely with the Hungry Bucks pop
yeah,
offs. He knows what he's doing.
for sure.
He's got an audience. He's got people that love him, and he's got a lot of people that love to hate him. So, but that's why he's one of the best in the world.
Oh, listen, people say that though there's no such thing as what I was gonna say bad news. That's not the right phrase. There's a phrase that is for there's no such. Yeah. Anyway, if people are watching you, whether or not they like you or hate you, you're getting watched, aren't you? Um, Outside of gaming, now I will say if there's a couple of people that when I pop on my LinkedIn or on my social medias and I see what they're doing, whenever yours comes up on my timeline, I'm always jealous of what you've got going on. I mean, what was going on recently with the NHL? Like I every time I've seen your things recently, I've just been seeing NHL ever, and I've been so jealous of everything that's going on.
I appreciate that. I like to stay busy. Toronto is the mecca for hockey, that's for sure. And I was very fortunate that a few weeks ago we had the NHL All Star Game was in Toronto. And although I don't do much in traditional sports, I've made friends with a lot of people that are operating the All Star events and the surrounding parties and experiences. So I had one of the most jam packed weekends of my life. EA Sports and the NHL were hosting the Global World Championship Open. So I got to go to the Hockey Hall of Fame, and I got to watch some video game players, some NHL players compete in the game. I think it was a couple $1,000 prize pool, but they're playing in a room surrounded by much of the greatest memorabilia that hockey has to offer. I got to go to the All-Star game itself, which was amazing to see. And then there was a conference called Sponsorship X, which is hosted by Mark Harrison, just one of the best conferences around sponsorship and partnerships in Canada. They host it actually all over the world. They're doing it at the Olympics. They're doing it adjacent to South by Southwest, and I got to go to that and just learn from some of the most um, experienced partnerships people in the world. They actually had a conversation that I loved. It was Marty Walsh, the executive director of the NHLPA, sitting down with Gary Bettman, obviously commissioner of the NHL, and just having a fireside chat. And I just got to sit there and listen and learn from those guys who, as a fan of the game, it was amazing for me to be witness to that. And then just learning about some of the partnerships, whether it's Scotiabank or Esso or some of these other brands that have been involved in hockey for a long time, about how they value partnership and how they see the growth of the game and how they see growing the game through diversity, equity, inclusion, which is something that I think we need to do around all sports, but hockey in particular, I think over indexes in their need to expand. So yeah, I had a full weekend, and then there was party after party after party. Everybody was hosting a party, and I was very appreciative to get a couple of invites to be able to go and have some fun and catch up with some old friends.
Yeah, it instantly made me want to get out there. And the hockey scene over in the UK, they try their hardest, but it's just not the same. Like anytime I've gone out and watched it at stateside, it's just been incredible. And I need to, at some point, I probably need to get some details over some of the guys, because I need to get some of the hockey guys involved on this. I've had chats, funny enough, with a couple of the NFL guys now. The season's all finished up, but I need to get as many people as we can to talk about all these sports that I love. Because
Oh,
I
I'll
agree.
take care of it for you.
There is definitely a merge there. Like, there's so many people I speak who are involved in all the different sports, that there's certainly a crossover with gaming. And how, like you said, the inclusion, um, and the different diversity and the different people who love these different sports and games, that it's a world that they haven't even begun to tap into yet. Like, there's so much there. And I think all these different events that you mentioned, there's only more and more of them popping up, and they're getting more and more traction, which is amazing to see.
Yeah, I'll be happy to connect you to some of the NHL guys, and you'll have some really great conversations. The thing to remember too, it's only been 7 years since we had that first real cultural crossover event, which was Ninja playing Fortnite with Juju Smith-Schuster, or of that time at the Pittsburgh Steelers,
Yeah.
Travis Scott and Drake. And that was the first moment most people kind of stood up and took notice that something special is happening here, and we need to pay attention. And that was March 2017. So it's still very early days for this cultural shift. And I saw yesterday Kai Cenat, streamer of the year, was on a podcast alongside I think it was Shannon Sharp and Stephen A.
Yeah.
Smith. And you're starting to see that it's all sports media entertainment is becoming one, whether it's music, whether it's traditional sports, or whether it's gaming and esports. It's all just entertainment at this point.
Oh well, I've seen it firsthand. Well, first of all, I say it whenever I'm a Tennessee Titans fan, as we know, and I'm not allowed to like Pat McAfee because of his link up with the Colts. But I'm obsessed with the Pat McAfee show, and every so often I'll pop it on. And like you said, there's Ninja, there's Tim the Tap Man, there's all these guys who are coming on, and them trying to explain the gaming world to a bunch of football heads, as it were. And it's amazing to see that crossover. But then, even when we were out in Vegas for the awards, like Pac-Man Jones, ex-Titans player, was just in the lobby, and we were just setting up some of the rooms, and he looked over, and there was this strange moment where he was staring at me, and I thought, I recognize this person staring at me. Where do I know? If I realized he was staring at my esports badge, he didn't remotely have a clue who I was, but he was looking at me, and I looked at him and I went, "You're Pac-Man Jones." And rather than just being like, "Yeah," he was like, "What's this esports that you're on about? Like, how can I get involved?" And that was the first thing he said. And then we had a bit of a conversation. We've had a few messages back and forth. And I remember this, like, he then, I remember it was a few weeks later when he was on the Pat McAfee show, he's mentioned, like, he was bringing up esports. And I've even,
Wow.
Yeah, and it's incredible just from one little moment where you realize that all these athletes at some point, that they're all hanging out together and they're all doing the game. Like Sergio Aguero, ex-Man City striker, he does his streaming. Like T-Pain, musician, streamer. Like there's so
Yep.
many people that now have gotten to the world of streaming because they realize it's a way of linking up with their audience, their fans that they've never had before. And there's all this Twitch and YouTube and everything else now where you can reach out and then you can do it in your own home. You don't have to go anywhere. You do it from your own home, like you said. Like most, or not most, but a lot of people are lucky enough to have a setup where they can have a webcam on, play a game that they love, and interact with their fans. And I think if you'd said that, like you said, 10 years ago, it would have been no way. And then even 5 years ago, after everything that's happened with Ninja and others, like the fact now that it's almost become commonplace where I think a lot of people involved in the music industry or the athletic industry have now just gone, how can I get involved in gaming? There's got to be a way of getting into that. And you can see it more and more.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the other thing, to your point, now with social media, the athletes that used to go out drinking and getting into some trouble, whatever that may be, they can't really do that because everyone's got a camera phone. And so now they actually, when they go on the road and some of these extended road trips, they bring video game consoles and they bring, gaming laptops. And I think they play a lot more games than people recognize because they frankly can't just walk up and down the street and they can't just go out to the nightclubs as freely as they used to. So it can be tough when you're on the road and they do got to play a lot of games. So good for our industry,
I I just
good for access.
I agree. And listen, if I can have more opportunities, I mean, we had Bryson DeChambeau down for 2 years ago at the award show, and I know Mike, who's my good friend, who the owner of the esports awards was mentioned. Like Bryson was incredible, but then like he's there holding a can of juvie, talking to Nade Shot and stuff, and golfers now getting involved in gaming. Like obviously, we mentioned briefly before we started the podcast that I don't play nearly enough. How has the golf game been recently? Obviously, we got to play at Bears Best, and we had Donna and Neil. We had Neil squared on our team, and I think we
We
done
sure
very well
did.
considering that we were sort of thrown together at the last minute.
Yeah, I was stunned at how well the people that actually went out and won played. I think they shot minus 16, if I
Yep.
remember correctly. Um, Golf game's okay. I'm trying to get out and play a bit more and more here or there. It's and being Canadian, being in the middle of winter right now, it's can't get out to the course, but I do go to the simulator from time to time.
Yep.
So I was in there a couple nights ago and working on the swing, just trying to hit the ball um, flush and square every time. And for me, if I can keep it in play, it's a good day. So hopefully, getting better. And one thing I will look forward to is getting a chance to play with you again wherever the esports awards will be this year, and hopefully we can do a little bit better than last year.
Yeah. I know I can definitely do better. It takes me about 4 or 5 holes to remember how to swing a club, and then it'll last for another six or so, and then it disappears again. It's the consistency.
Well, I think you need the cameras on you. I know your
Oh,
listeners will appreciate this story. We There was the closest to the pin gets $75,000, and we weren't having the best round of the day, that's for sure. But you stepped up and you absolutely struck it beautifully and came within, couldn't have been any more than 3 feet from the pin.
no.
And uh, correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe that was the closest shot of the day to
I
going in.
I was closest to the pin by a good few feet apparently. But then I was also told by a member of the awards team that because I was technically employed that week for the thing, that they don't know if they would have let me actually win the car based on being an employee. And I told them that I would 100%, if I'd hit that hole in one, would have been driving that car home. And it's a long way, but I would have been taking that car.
Well, you would I would have made sure you got fired on the spot from your job, and then you would have been eligible. That's for
Hey,
sure.
you won the Oakleys I wanted. Listen,
That's
they
true.
had the whole set up where it was yeah, close, was it closest pin, or yeah, again it's the best tee shot, and you walked up and crushed it straight away. Got yourself a nice pair
Not
of
nearly as
Oakleys.
close as you, but I did get it on the green thanks to And thanks to Tim Edmonds over at Oakley for hooking that up.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think those Oakleys were just released that day too.
Were
So
they the Fortnite ones? I
uh,
can't remember if it was the
they
Fortnite ones.
they
Yeah.
were the Fortnite ones. Yeah, that
I've got
worked out well
some
for me.
hand way back there from the year before. I'd done all right the year before. They sorted this out. It's part of it. And listen, there's so many reasons I love the awards, but when Oakley turn up and you see all their cool stuff, I've still got my Oakley bag from it, and it's yeah. Oh, I love the stuff they did. But yeah, those glasses you got were cool. Couldn't get me a pair of them. I wasn't good enough for them. Almost a car, but
Hey,
not the glasses.
always next year.
Oh, listen. I played a little bit more over here now. The weather's been, listen, UK, Canada, we know what it's like when it's cold and wet conditions. It's not ideal for golf. We need the sun to come out fast. That's why Vegas sorts us out.
Absolutely. And that was a beautiful course. I can't remember the name of it, but my God, it was just picturesque. And I've got a few photos on my phone of you. You might say your game wasn't in top form that day, but the photos sure made you look
Oh,
like a professional.
I think
So
they're all still
that's
being used on social media as profile pictures. It's the best
that's
I've
all that
looked, and
matters.
it's the best I might look. I need Bears Best to come back, but where it's sunny, because I don't know if you were watching any of the NFL honors or any of the NFL Pro Bowl stuff, but funny enough, all the stuff they were doing prior to the Pro Bowl, so the honors was at Resorts World. So I was watching the video and I was going, I recognize that carpet. And it's only when I looked into it, realized it was the exact same hole that we'd done like the scholars and stuff, was the same hole that they'd done the honors. And then when they were doing
That's funny.
the tee shots and the best long drive prior to the Pro Bowl, it was all Bears Best. And I said, like, so that's what
Wow.
the course looks like when it's not pouring down with rain and freezing cold.
Oh, miserable day.
I know.
But we got to go back and play it. We'll have to find a reason to, if the awards aren't in Vegas, we'll have to find a reason to road trip out that way and
Oh,
still
for
play it.
sure. It's yeah, it's a beautiful course. Before I let go, is there anything else is there anything else going on with yourself or any new projects up and coming other than what you shouted out before with the thing in May?
Well, efuse is keeping busy. We're doing a ton of stuff these days. A lot of Call of Duty events, a lot of Fortnite events. We just finished a really cool series. We partnered up with the FlyQuest group, and we did the Trailblazer tournament, women's only Valorant tournament.
Yeah.
Really awesome. The finals had 13,000 concurrents watching, which we're really thrilled about. But yeah, keep your eyes out for efuse and what we're doing in the arena, all kinds of great tournaments, events. We hosted over 300 days of tournaments and competition last year, and I know we've got some stuff planned, not announced yet, but coming up with Epic and with Activision. So
Sweet.
yeah, keep your eyes out for Efuse.
Oh, for sure. Listen, I'll be tagging it all when we post this anyway. But where can the guys find you on socials and stuff if they wanna find about? I can just say just alone for the hockey content, let alone even. I mean, the game stuff's brilliant, but the hockey content recently has been unbelievable.
Well, I appreciate that. I would say I'm not the best at social media. You can add me on LinkedIn. I'll love to connect with everybody. Just Neil Duffy. You can type in eFuse, you'll find me pretty quickly. I'm on Twitter or X.com, I guess. Just Neil Duffy. You can follow me there. But yeah, those are probably the two best places. If you ever want to reach out, by all means, get my contact from Miles, and we're happy to connect and chat. And just thrilled to be on the podcast and get to learn a little bit more about you and share a little bit about me. So thank you again.
No, it's also. Listen, I super appreciate you coming on. Like before I start this off, I had a list of people that I wanted to get on, and no word of a lie, you were right at the top. I was there. Like I had the people that I've connected with over the couple of years, and then straight away I said like, I've got to get Neil on. Neil's right near the
But
top of the list. So I super appreciate you coming on and spreading knowledge of what it is you're doing, also talking about gaming as well.
that's very kind of you to say. Thank you very much.
That's so good. And for people listening again, thank you for listening. It means a lot. Listening, watching, however you choose to do it. As I keep on saying, we're early to this, I'm early to this. So any feedback that you have, and if you want to come on and chat any form of gaming, you don't have to be involved in the business at all. Like I said, we've got people coming up who are athletes, and I've just got some of my mates who had to cope with me playing Halo 3 in the early days. So they'll be coming on to lie about how I wasn't very good at video games. But I appreciate everyone listening, and until next time, keep gaming, guys.